Okay, everyone, Bismillah. Are you ready for the next session, or do you want a couple of minutes to rest? You ready? Bismillah. Okay, my name is Nabeel Derhem, and I work as a solution architect. I'll be explaining to you today about Entity Framework. Before I start, how many of you have used Entity Framework? For testing or production? Just tried it. Okay? Because you can see the title. It's a deeper look, so I'm assuming you have at least some knowledge about Entity Framework. Anyhow, the good thing about it is that most of the discussion is on the architecture level, on the development patterns, on the best practices you should use. So even if you didn't use it, you can just keep these the points we're going to discuss in your mind. I'm not going to explain, the syntax and how to use Entity Framework. I'll be passing by some examples quickly while doing that. Most of this will be a discussion, just a quick discussion. The biggest problem that people are facing these days is deciding whether to use Entity Framework in their new project or not, right? And okay, the people who used, I'm going to assume somebody has some, the guys who raised their hand. Which one do you think is better? Using the ADO.NET directly or Entity Framework? This is the question that everyone asks, right? So if you used it, which one do you prefer?
Difficult answer. Because every have its evaluation as its good thing you use in it, its performance, its building new architecture on it, it will be a challenge.
So your answer is the answer I like. It depends, right?
It depends about your project and what you plan to do.
Okay. You have, this is the point. Do you remember the previous session with Ahmed? He was showing you about asynchronous, right? Everything is becoming more and more simple. This is what's happening in the development world. So this is what's happening with Entity Framework. ADO.NET was powerful, and the problem was in productivity, right? You need a lot of time to creating the data access layer in order to get, the result that you want. The previous session and this session is about technologies that increase productivity. So the question is actually wrong when you say which one is better. You have to know which one is more important. Is it productivity for you or performance? And I know that the usual answer is I need both. But that's the management answer, not the developer's answer. You should always know. You have to sacrifice one. With Entity Framework, just look at this. I'm not going to explain this diagram, but look at the bottom. It's saying ADO.NET, right? So, the one thing you can get quickly is that Entity Framework is built upon ADO.NET, right? So there's a layer above ADO.NET. That's Entity Framework. I think just by noticing that, you know that in terms of performance, ADO.NET should be better. Right? That's the immediate answer. But let me reframe the question. I'm assuming that you're using ADO.NET in the best possible manner. And believe me, in 85% of the cases, this is not true. I can see your data access layer. I see the statements you're using. They are not optimized. So for many, it might be a surprise to see that when they use Entity Framework, they get better performance than the normal ADO.NET. If you're like me, or if you have somebody who's really good, probably if you've attended my previous sessions, I'm more a database guy. So I know exactly how to deal with database. For guys like me, using ADO.NET will always give better performance than using Entity Framework. But for most developers, no. Using Entity Framework could give you a better performance because the guys who wrote the Entity Framework know what they're doing. They tried to give you the best queries they could afford. Not the best at all, but the best they could give, which is usually better than what you do. So the first thing you have to decide is, do I want productivity? Then go with Entity Framework. Do I want best performance? If you're talking about a very huge enterprise application, then probably you should move to ADO.NET or use the normal ADO.NET. Okay, so that's the first thing I needed to answer to you guys. Small applications, you want to finish quickly, Entity Framework is the best. And you know, it has been a long way since Entity Framework. By the way, you have version 1 and 4, right? There are no version 2, 3. It's version 1, which was in 3.5, and then version 4, they just decided to put it with Entity Framework, with .NET 4, or as some guys from Microsoft said, it's version 2 multiplied by 2. It's better like 2 times. They wanted to do some marketing stuff. Anyway, the point is, in Entity Framework 4, performance has improved dramatically. I mean, before, I used to see a huge difference between ADO.NET and Entity Framework. In this version, no, a lot of things have been improved in this diagram. The way they are generating views is much better. Okay. Usually, if you see any webcast where people are quickly showing you Entity Framework, they're always generating it from a database, right? The guys who saw it are usually doing it from the database side. Now, this is pretty simple. I'll try, by the way, I won't be showing a lot of examples or demos today, but just to show you very quickly, I have a project here that is already built. You can see here when adding a new item, you can add an entity data model. Now, what you usually see people doing is creating this and choosing generate from database, right? This assumes one thing. The database is already there, right? Now, for most developers, this is not good news, especially if you're the guy who's going to build the database, because usually you're more a developer, a focused guy, more than a database guy. And that's why usually, in the 3 approaches I will show you, and the biggest enterprises, they use the database first model. They create the database, the design is there, and then from there they start working with the Entity Framework. So if you're going to choose this, you're simply going to connect to some database somewhere. And once you're done, choose whatever you have, like tables or stored procedures. Click Finish. And I'm doing this just quickly because I saw that most of you didn't see Entity Framework before. As you can see, something called a model has been created, which is like a copy of the database on your site, EDM. You should, if you've never worked before, you should read about something called EDM. It's a theory that is not just for Microsoft, for everyone else. So Microsoft has implemented this EDM in the Entity Framework technology. Everything can be implemented here, relationships, foreign keys and stuff. So this is the model that you have. Starting from the model, you can go into your queries, into your code, and say dem product, and then, for example, you can say from this table select. It looks a lot like a SQL statement, but it's not. Okay, so instead of going and opening a connection to the database and writing your statements, you can use this in your code by a specific language link, to entity query language. And it just goes and creates the actual statements, SQL statements, for you, run it, and gets you the result back.